The new face in Coronado. The California sun beat down on Sergeant Isabella Rodriguez as the black SUV crunched to a halt outside the sprawling compound. Coronado. Even through the tinted windows, the air thrummed with raw, male energy. She took a deep breath, the scent of salt and something akin to nervous sweat filling her lungs. This was it. Stepping out, Isabella adjusted the strap of her duffel bag, the crisp lines of her fatigues a stark contrast to the wan, sun-faded buildings. Whispers followed her like a shadow. She ignored them, her gaze sweeping over the assembled figures, hulking men, muscles straining against their t-shirts, faces etched with a mixture of arrogance and curiosity. This was their domain. She was the outsider. A low chuckle rippled through the group. "Think they brought us a cheerleader?" someone muttered, loud enough for her to hear. Ensign David Tex Calhoun leaned against a nearby Humvee, chewing on a toothpick. He watched Isabella carefully. The man's reactions were predictable, but something about her bearing intrigued him. She didn't cower, didn't bristle. Her chin was held high, her eyes, dark and intelligent, assessing the situation with a quiet confidence that belied her size. He noticed the way her hand instinctively found the grip of her sidearm, a subtle movement that spoke volumes. The bus quieted as a gruff voice barked, "Rodriguez. Over here." A man built like a brick shithouse, face weathered and unforgiving, beckoned her forward. This was probably the instructor. Isabella met his gaze unflinchingly. "You lost, Sergeant?" he asked, a smirk playing on his lips. "Negative, sir," she replied, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the humid air. "Precisely where I need to be." Tex pushed himself off the Humvee, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. This was going to be interesting. Hammer's doubts. "All right, maggots, listen up." Hammer's voice cracked like a whip across the sun-baked asphalt. "Today, we learn to fight. Mano a mano. When your fancy gadgets are gone, and it's just you and the enemy, this is all you got." He slammed a fist into his open palm, the sound echoing. "Close quarters combat. Understand?" A chorus of "Yes, sir," rippled through the ranks. Hammer's gaze swept over the recruits, lingering on Isabella. He smirked, a flash of teeth in his weathered face. "Rodriguez, isn't it? Figure you're more used to guarding tombs than breaking bones." A few snickers rippled through the group, quickly silenced by Hammer's glare. Tex, standing beside Isabella, shifted uncomfortably. He liked the woman, but even he had to admit she didn't exactly look like she could take down a grizzly bear. "We'll see what you're made of," Hammer continued, his voice dripping with challenge. He pointed to a padded sparring mat. "Calhoun, you're up first. Rodriguez, you're with me. Let's see if you even know how to make a fist." He beckoned her forward, a predatory glint in his eyes. The other SEALs watched with a mixture of amusement and anticipation. They were about to witness a beatdown. Isabella stepped forward, her expression unreadable. The air crackled with tension, thick with the scent of sweat and impending violence. Underestimated strength. The Coronado sun beat down, reflecting off the pristine white sand. Isabella ignored the SEAL's low murmurs, the sidelong glances that sized her up and dismissed her. "She's what, 5'0", one drawled, earning a snicker. Another, built like a brick shithouse, cracked his knuckles. "Let's see if she can even lift a rifle." Instructor Miller, a man-mountain they called Hammer, stepped forward, a Glock 19 appearing in his hand as if by magic. "All right, Rodriguez, watch closely. This is how we disarm a threat." He demonstrated a series of rapid movements, a ballet of brutal efficiency. The pistol flew from his grip, landing harmlessly in the sand. Got it? Isabella nodded, her gaze unwavering. She hadn't missed a single detail, the minute shift in his weight, the angle of his wrist, the subtle tell in his eyes. Tex Calhoun, a Texan with a perpetual grin, shifted uncomfortably. He liked Rodriguez. She carried herself with a quiet confidence that belied the SEAL's boisterous arrogance. He remembered his grandma's words, "Still waters run deep, David." He hoped they weren't about to make a big mistake underestimating her. The air crackled with anticipation. Hammer, chest puffed out, gestured towards her with a challenging smirk. "All right, Rodriguez, your turn." The challenge accepted. Rodriguez, Hammer Buck, the name cracking like a whip in the morning air. Every head swiveled. Isabella met his gaze, unflinching. "You're with me." A ripple of murmurs spread through the ranks. This was it. Hammer, built like a brick shithouse and radiating testosterone, against a woman many still privately considered a liability. He grinned, a flash of white teeth against tan skin. "We're gonna show these greenhorns how to properly disarm an aggressor. Nice and slow, so even Rodriguez can follow along." Isabella didn't flinch. No fire in her eyes, no nervous twitch. Just acceptance. "Understood, Instructor Miller." Her voice, even and clear, cut through the buzzing anticipation. Hammer's grin widened. He hadn't expected her to fold, exactly, but this calm readiness was almost unsettling. He grabbed a training knife, the dull metal glinting in the sun. The other SEALs were practically vibrating with anticipation. They knew what Hammer could do. They expected a bloodless, but decisive, victory. A demonstration of force. A reminder of the natural order. He adopted a fighting stance, the knife held low. "Whenever you're ready, Rodriguez." Isabella mirrored his stance, hands open, palms facing him. Her eyes narrowed, focusing on the knife, on Hammer's grip, on the subtle shift of his weight. The air thickened, charged with unspoken challenge and the heavy expectation of what was to come. A blur of motion. Hammer moved like a bull, a roar escaping his lips as he lunged. It was a clumsy attack, relying on brute force, exactly what Isabella had anticipated. Instead of meeting him head-on, she flowed around him, a blur of motion too fast for text to properly register. One moment Hammer was there, a wall of muscle and aggression, the next he was stumbling forward, grasping at empty air. Isabella's movements weren't the direct, powerful blocks text was used to seeing. They were subtle redirections, a delicate dance of leverage and momentum. He blinked, trying to keep up. It was like watching water divert a boulder, effortless and inevitable. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the assembled SEALs. Hammer, recovering his footing, turned, a flicker of surprise in his eyes quickly masked by a scowl. He came again, this time feinting left then right, trying to catch Isabella off guard. But she anticipated each move, her body a finely tuned instrument responding to his clumsy rhythm. Tex noticed it then, the deliberate precision behind her speed. Each movement, though lightning fast, was perfectly placed, economical, designed to maximize effect with minimal effort. It wasn't just speed, it was control. Then, with a move so quick Tex almost missed it, Isabella stepped inside Hammer's guard, a whisper of fabric the only indication of her passage. A hand, impossibly fast, snaked out and, with a sickening thud, disarmed him. Hammer's training knife clattered onto the mat. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. The disarm. Hammer circled Isabella, a shark eyeing its prey. "Show me what you got, Rodriguez. Show me you belong here. He lunged, the training knife a blur. Isabella didn't flinch. Instead, she moved with a speed that defied her size. A sharp intake of breath was the only warning Hammer received before her hand shot out, a precise strike landing on a pressure point just below his elbow. His arm went numb. Before he could react, Isabella's other hand snaked around his wrist, a complex series of twists and leverages that forced his grip open. He felt the knife slip from his suddenly unresponsive fingers. The clatter of steel on the concrete pad echoed in the sudden stillness. The training knife spun once, twice, then lay still. Hammer stared at his empty hand, then at the weapon at his feet. His face, usually florid and booming, was a mask of disbelief. Every seal in the class was frozen, their mouths agape. The only sound was the distant crash of waves against the shore. The air crackled with unspoken questions. Isabella stood, posture perfect, waiting. Respect earned. The red drained slowly from Hammer's face, replaced by a blotchy, mottled purple. He blinked, his thick neck working as he swallowed hard. Around them, the class remained frozen, a silent tableau of disbelief. He hadn't expected to be taken down, certainly not that fast, and definitely not by her. He pushed himself up, spitting out sand. Again, he growled, but the fire had gone out of his voice. This time, he circled her warily, his stance lower, more cautious. He feinted left, then right, trying to draw her out. But Isabella remained centered, calm as still water. He lunged. Again, she flowed around his attack, her movements economical and precise. This time, she didn't disarm him immediately. Instead, she used his momentum against him, guiding him in a dizzying spiral until he was stumbling, off balance. Then, with a sharp twist, she sent him sprawling. Hammer sat in the sand, chest heaving. He looked up at Isabella, her dark eyes unwavering. He knew bluster wouldn't work now. "All right, Rodriguez," he said, his voice surprisingly level. "I owe you an apology. I came in here thinking, well, I thought you wouldn't last a week. I was wrong." He ran a hand through his close-cropped hair. That wasn't just strength. That was technique. Damn good technique. Where did you learn to move like that? He stood, offering her a hand. "Whatever it is you're doing, Rodriguez, keep doing it. You might just teach us old dogs a new trick or two." An unexpected offer. The silence after Isabella's takedown of Hammer stretched, thick and heavy, broken only by the distant cry of a gull. He was still on the mat, a knot of muscle and simmering rage. Then, Isabella spoke, her voice clear and steady. "I am willing to teach you." A collective intake of breath swept through the assembled seals. Teach them. The idea was preposterous, yet the evidence of her skill lay sprawling on the mat. Hammer pushed himself up, dusting off his fatigues. He looked from Isabella to the stunned faces of his men, his expression a mixture of disbelief and begrudging respect. "Teach us what, Rodriguez?" "How to do, whatever that was. My fighting style. It's different. Focus on leverage, speed, exploiting weaknesses. It can be adapted to your existing skill set." Tex, ever the enthusiastic one, was the first to react. "Hell yeah. I'm in. I volunteer to be your first student, Sergeant." He grinned, his drawl thick with anticipation. Always up for learning a new trick, especially one that can take down Hammer here. A ripple of amusement ran through the group. Hammer, despite his initial skepticism, seemed to consider the offer seriously. The prospect of adding such a unique and effective style to their arsenal was too tempting to ignore. He nodded slowly. "All right, Rodriguez. Let's see what you've got. Teach us." Lessons learned. "All right, gentlemen," Isabella announced, her voice cutting through the salty air. "Today, we learn balance." She gestured to the uneven terrain of the obstacle course. "The ground doesn't care how much you bench. It only cares if you can adapt." Tex, ever the optimist, grinned. "Sounds like my kind of rodeo." He bounced on the balls of his feet. Several other SEALs remained stoic, arms crossed, their skepticism a palpable force. Isabella started with footwork, a dance of shifting weight and calculated steps. She moved with a grace that belied her compact frame, flowing around imagined opponents. The SEALs, used to brute force and head-on collisions, struggled. Hammer, watching from the sidelines, scoffed, then chewed on his lip. Hours bled into the afternoon. Sweat plastered Isabella's hair to her forehead, but her energy didn't flag. She corrected stances, adjusted grips, and demonstrated disarming techniques so swift they were almost invisible. Tex was a natural, his lanky frame surprisingly agile. Others grumbled, but slowly, grudgingly, they began to understand. "Think like water," Isabella instructed, deflecting a clumsy blow from a SEAL named Johnson. "Find a path of least resistance." Johnson, red-faced, tried again, this time incorporating her advice. He moved more fluidly, his attack less telegraphed. Hammer pushed off the wall, a new respect in his eyes. He hadn't seen this kind of transformation since, well, never. He approached Isabella as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the training ground. "Rodriguez," he said, his voice unusually subdued. "You've got away with these guys." Isabella met his gaze, unflinching. "They have the potential, Instructor Miller. They just needed a different perspective."